Hi there, welcome to the I Ching Cafe. My name is Belinda Doveston, and it is great that you are here. As always, wonderful that you are joining me for this week's I Ching forecast, with the week commencing the 30th of June 2025. So, to be fair, only Monday is June, and then we're straight through into July. So, really, we're technically just about in July here. And of course, that means around the corner is the July overview. What do we need to pay attention to for the month of July working with the I Ching? Okay, so last week we had this beautiful hexagram 11, peace. All right, finding peace, finding that place of heaven and earth uniting and finding a place, the fertility, the profusion, the opening up, the opportunity of finding a place where things line up, where the energy opens up, where we lean into with open arms into the energy that's flowering all around us. With some changing lines bringing us development, some extra focus, and of course that hexagram 60 limitation bringing us boundaries and giving us the energy to focus on breaking things up into small pieces. Perhaps you found that was a strategy in the last week that really helped you take something overwhelming and break it down into smaller chunks. Chunking it down, we spoke about last week, coupled with that wonderful energy of peace. And I affirm that you found some resolution, some part of your life, or perhaps some part of those close to you, because it doesn't necessarily always mean it's you, but can be that there's someone around you that you observe this energy working through, of things lining up, things connecting, things opening up, the energy finally being able to flow, and a release as you move forward. So if there is anything, as always, please do share, and lovely comments from last week's episode as well. Okay, so let's get into what this week is asking us to pay attention to. Last little day of June into July. Where should our focus be this week if we work as a collective? And our first hexagram for this week is hexagram 61, centered truth, inner truth. Structure of the hexagram, you can see that there's like a little opening in the center, right? The heart. Okay, there's an opening, there's a centered point. In a way, there's quite a connection of idea between last week's piece, where things line up, things are connected and cohesive, and this hexagram, where there's this opening, space is created for this opening for the heart. And what this hexagram brings to us is it brings an alignment, but this time between our inside selves and our outside selves, between different parts that perhaps have had different facets or focuses. Okay, so we think about in our lives, we have our truth, how we feel, how we look at a situation, our inside voice, okay, and then we have the masks that we put on to the world around us of how we interact with others, okay. Very often, especially if you're in a large corporate environment, it's easy to believe, it's easy to think that I've got to suppress who I am in order to fit in. Okay, so that creates a dissonance now between my inside self and my outside self. This hexagram also brings with us a moment of truth. It's an opportunity that something just slices through like a hot knife through butter. I've had this experience before with this hexagram and shared that with you, of in a week that I had it, this insight just went whoosh, okay, and just came in and landed. Okay, so you might experience that coming to you. What is the truth thing that you really need to hear? It might be something that others have been trying to tell you, or you've been trying to tell other people, and no one can listen, right? No one's open. But then this week, there's an opportunity for that hot knife through butter. Okay. So there's an energy here where if you need to be heard, if you need to say the truth, if you need to find a way of conveying what's really true, okay, this is the energy of this week to do it. And also, keep your heart open to where you need to hear something, okay? Where you need to pay attention to something that's coming to you in the week. It might be through somebody else, someone saying something that's completely unrelated. And what it does, it goes whoosh, okay, and that insight can come through. You know, often you think about this Bible stories of Noah and the ark. And I recently had a discussion on this topic with someone else saying, well, the other person said, well, you know, I don't believe that Noah got messages from God that he needed to save everyone in this ark. Why would only Noah get the information? And why would other people be excluded from the information? All right. And I'm not having a view on Noah or whether the story is real or not real. It's an example of where, in most cases, when people have divine inspiration, they are receiving that message because they are receptive to it. Hot knife through butter. Okay. They have an openness. There's a moment in time where that message can get through to someone who's receptive and ready and open, can interpret it correctly and can work with it and is willing to take responsibility with what they receive. And you think about our daily lives and how much space we create for those moments, all right? How capable are we of having a mind that has stillness and no noise in, that the information we need comes? Our minds are filled with noise, with social media, with world issues, with personal issues, with emotional issues, okay, with worry and anxiety and stress and jobs and all these things that consume us. And that's part of life. But if we want the insight, if we want this hot knife through butter, we also have to appreciate that, like Noah, we have to have a moment of clarity, a moment of space where that message can ping through, okay, can get through the noise and can arrive to someone who's willing to do something about it. And of course, you can imagine if you took that story into today's life and someone said, I have had this message, the world's coming to an end, and everyone's going to climb on this ark, and you'll think to yourself, nut job, okay, we're not following him anywhere, and look what happened. So from a story point of view, it's a wonderful way of really appreciating that it's not about being special or chosen to receive that message. It's about you happen to be the open channel that can receive that message at the right time, and you're willing to do something about it. So if you are looking for divine inspiration, of any kind of inspiration, if you are questing to understand the truth on something, if you're wrestling with something where you're really struggling to understand what it really means, what to do, how to work with it, if those are processes that you are really struggling with at this time in your life, understand that we have to create space for the answer to come, for the insight, the inspiration, the truth to come. If our minds, if our focus is filled with noise and phones and computers and whatever, YouTube, okay, if we are filled with noise, our ability to do that is hugely compromised. So if you are wrestling with something this week, it's a great idea to create the space. Create the open heart with this hexagram. Open up the heart and create some space in this week to sit with it. Okay, sit with the issue, sit with the problem, clear the problem out your mind, whether it's meditation or it's a walking in the forest or whatever it is the process that opens you up, and allow the hot knife through butter. Take responsibility for what comes to you in those moments of clarity. And if you're willing to take responsibility, the information that you are looking for, the insight, the answer, the clarity that you are looking for to solve your problems can come to you. It cannot arrive in the midst of noise. Often it arrives from somebody else, okay? From the Noah in your life, it comes to tell you something, and we discount it because we are not open. Okay, so we're going to work this week with being centered in truth, being in our center, lining up our inside and our outside selves, and finding a way of creating clarity and that moment where, okay, it can happen and we can shift dramatically because something lands. And once we realize something, you can never go back, right? You now have a new piece of information. Cannot go back. And part of that process is lining up and being open. And perhaps this week you realize where the truth has manifested through you, where that moment has already taken place. We just didn't have enough time to sit and process it and think about it and be present with it because there were lots of other things happening. So it's not just about that thing, that moment happening in the week. It's also about realizing where that moment has taken place of late. Okay, one changing line in the third position. transition, okay, right? From the bottom 3 lines, the bottom trigram, there's a little chasm between them to the top trigram, the top 3 lines. And in position 3, often it's a tricky line as we're now about to step over this threshold from the one to the other. With this particular changing line, it refers to our challenge for this week, or this challenge that our attention is being drawn to in this time, is where we are flipping and flopping. Okay. Sometimes we feel very excited about this issue, and sometimes we feel very down about the issue. Sometimes we feel happy about the issue. Sometimes we feel sad about the issue. Sometimes we feel committed about listening to Noah. Sometimes we feel that it's the worst idea we could possibly ever have. Okay, so this idea of this vacillation around this transition point, creating a lot of dynamic energy. This line also brings to us the awareness and the learning that when we tie our own center of gravity, as it were, to how others feel or their happiness, their degree of happiness, we are doomed to flip and to flop and to be happy and to be sad and to be going around this challenge of finding the inner centered truth. What we have to do is that center of gravity has to be within. And part of the learning of this week is finding a way of shifting where that center of gravity is, out of making other people happy, we being happy because they are happy. We have to change that process, and we have to bring the center of gravity back in and back into principle. If we are acting in principle, whether other people are happy or not happy, in the short, medium, or long term, doesn't matter, because the ark and the animals and saving the species, okay, is important. Okay, if Noah was worried about what his community thought of him, all right, and their happiness, he would have never have built the ark and completed the process, all right, because he would have been too caught up in his own happiness, his own sense of vision being tied into making others happy. Sometimes our truth creates unhappiness, right? Or the truth creates unhappiness for others, and in time, those things tend to work out. Okay, what we have to do this week is to have our focus, our energy tied to our own center of gravity, our own understanding of what needs to be done, of what is true, of what this process is, and we need to move forward. Okay. So that leads to an outcome hexagram. All right, now, very interesting. We started the month of June with hexagram 9, small Tames, locked. The second week, we had hexagram 9, small Tames again, changing to a second hexagram. And this outcome hexagram for this week is hexagram 9, the small Tames. Okay, the small accumulates. So it's, in a way, we've been bookended, all right, at the beginning of June and the end of June, beginning of July, but this bookend of June's overviews squished or sandwiched together by this hexagram, this tiny little hexagram that restrains a big force. Hexagram 9 is all about how the little things, the details, are important or can trip us up because we don't think they are important. Lots of little things to take care of, to be aware of, to process, to work through. And so this week we have this center truth, right? Flip-flopping, trying to find our center of gravity, realigning with that center of gravity, and then coming back to the way we move through this week, the path to victory with the second hexagram that evolves from the first, is through the small things, because the small things are going to come at us whether we like it or not. What wins the game, the path to victory, is that we treat every little small thing as important. We deal with one thing at a time, even if they feel like they're flying at us and they're all disconnected little things needing to be resolved. It's okay. We just deal with one thing at a time, one step at a time, one small thing. We care for every little thing. We look after the chickens, the crop, the trees, the cattle. We look after every single one. And we get into the detail, because that is what is calling our attention, our focus this week. We need to sort out the details. We need to pay attention to them and love them and give them time and work through them one by one. So, an interesting week where we need to be open to the revelation, open to truth, open to finding our center of gravity within ourselves, not tied to the emotional well-being of other people this week. A very important, specific thing for us to pay attention to, a way to unlock our lives this week, and then to work with attending to all the details, dealing with the small stuff, because that is where our attention is needed at this time. Thank you so much for being here with me. Always a pleasure for us to work with the I Ching. It's a pleasure to do this work with you, and I look forward to seeing you soon at our monthly I Ching forecast. So in the meantime, if this was valuable, thumbs up, you know what to do. Subscribe, hit the bell, hit the follow button if you're new, and of course I'll see you very shortly for that episode. Until then, take care.